Henrietta there in the top with a big halo of hair.
Hello, Henrietta.
She and I sort of planned this together. In fact, I've said you can blame her for this meeting because it was her suggestion. We were talking about what do teachers need if they were teaching Commedia in the high school, and she said, well, why don't you ask teachers what they need? And I said, okay, let's do that. So that's where I'm actually coming from with this video, and probably the meeting and the other meetings, is that there's a progression of ideas that I'd like to sell to you. And then if you can tell me whether it's useful or not, it'll be very good for me. So let's get started. I'll share the screen with the video. Hi, Tony Kishawi here, and I'm entitling this recording as Creating a Healthy Ensemble in the Classroom. And I'd like to sort of rewind you back to where the starting point of this thinking came about. How did I get here to just summarizing Commedia as creating a healthy ensemble? Well, Commedia, I believe, is ensemble theater. It's usually, you know, in the history, saying that it's just a troupe of actors getting together. There wasn't really a director, you know, saying, go here, do that. It was something that the actors were creating and making up and performing every performance. They probably did have a group leader, but the idea is that the actors were coming up with the material, they were interacting with the audience, they were coming up with the gags, and then of course that stayed in, you know, so it was an ensemble, traveling in gypsy wagons or whatever. So how do we now teach it? Now I'm going to go back to how it all started. You know, teachers like Jacques Lecoq, Antonio Fava, Carlo Mezzon Clementi, and these three, I believe, are the ones who revived Commedia. I think it all started with Jacques Lecoq finding the Donato Sartori mask maker. I think it's the son of the father who had the masks. He had the wood blocks, and Jacques Lecoq commissioned these masks to be made. And so the first Commedia masks made out of leather were appearing. Now, we're talking about the 1950s here, and so then those teachers, those revivalists, went back to their various countries and they were starting to teach Commedia. And of course the history books were reinforcing what the style was and so on, and they, as teachers, were then teaching actors in their international schools. So now we've got these three gurus, and there were some other teachers like Carlo Bosso, the dell'Arte school now run by Joan Shirley. So all of these schools are turning out maybe 30 or more students a year, going back to their various countries and you know, trying to perform Commedia. But of course, when they get back to their country, they try and work with other actors that they're friends, and they, well, you don't actually know what I know because you didn't go to the school that I went to. And there's a fascinating thing about Commedia when you learn under the masters, is that you absolutely fall in love with the style. And so when you get back to your country, you want to perform it, and so therefore you start teaching other actors so that you can perform a troupe. And of course that is sort of like a level of, okay, I'm passing on as much information as I remember from my gurus, and then those people go out into the wilderness and they teach, and then those people go out into the wilderness and they teach. And so you've got this distilling of the art form, you know, thinning out, you could say, as people pass on this art form. So what is the right way? What is it? So we all go back to the masters and say, what is the right way we should teach? Whereas it's not, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. Because when you're talking about performing arts and an art form, is that you can't say, oh, we must do it this way. Otherwise, we're stuck in this very restrictive sort of bubble of saying this is history and we cannot change it. And so we can't stop an artist, a performer, to, you know, change the style. So what are the basics that we need to teach in a class in a high school environment? What is the right thing that we should pass on? So we got the stock characters, we got the basic moves, mask work, the technique, which is the walks and the stance of the stock characters, and you've got the bit of history, the origins, and audience repartee. So, and that's where the improvisation comes in. More about that later. So here we are now thinking about what is it that we can teach? What can I pass on if I was running a professional development class, which I have done, and I find the subject way too big to be able to just impart in a a professional development lesson with a handful of teachers for 2 hours. So I've been thinking, what is the main thing that we should be passing on for a teacher? Don't squeeze Commedia into just one unit in the middle of a whole year of other units. Teach it from the beginning of the year. Start training. Actors love training. And if you start training the actors at the beginning of every drama class, okay, you do stretching, you do playing warm-up games, but why not do the stretching and the physical practice of the Commedia form? And you can actually put other things in there too, like Laban movements, for example. You could do viewpoint training. It will all come down to training the actor to be a good actor with complicity with other actors. I mean, that's what we do theatre games for. I have been, running exercises to get the best out of students, and I wrote a book on the subject. It's only my lifetime's work, that's all. But one of the things that I find now is that when you do start to work with the masks and start work with the characters, you'll find that the earlier training that you did, like stretching, practicing the walks, balance, viewpoints helps, Laban movements help. All of this has been a lead up to Commedia. And I think that would be the best way to teach Commedia, because it applies to all of our efforts to train the actor. What do they say? An actor's body is their instrument. So let's make sure that the actors in our drama room are training their bodies. Okay, I'll just stop the screen share. Okay, so did you see the video? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it was fine.
Oh, okay, good.
Thank you.
So hopefully, I don't know, the point that I was making there, I mean, hopefully you got something out of it. So what I'm suggesting is that we teach Commedia all year round in a high school environment, so that we train the students to be good actors using the Commedia and the masks.
I like the idea. Well, when you mentioned how there's this guy distilling of the art form, but that's not, it's not as huge a problem, I guess, and that those skills of Commedia, that we all have this terrible tendency of going, I have a unit and it's Commedia and I have 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever the case is, and then we don't go back to it. I really like the idea. 4, even better. You're very good then. To be able to draw out those techniques of Commedia and put them in other units, so that then when it comes to Commedia, the kids go, oh, we do make that connection. I don't think a lot of teachers kind of think of Commedia that way. They just think of it as a theatrical style and go, well, we're now doing a theatrical style and here it is. So this concept I really like a lot.
Well, that's good. Thank you. What else can I say is that I believe that, yes, the training should go all year, but then the curriculum gets in the way. I mean, syllabus gets in the way, because you've got to do so many other theatre forms. But I see it as like, I actually entitled my workshop, How to Sneakily Teach Commedia All Year Round Without Getting Caught, so that the teachers are actually sneaking it in to their regular warm-up games and all that kind of stuff. So, it makes them physically fit as well as mentally fit to be able to be good actors.
And this is a really really basic thought, but when I watched your video, and I've been doing this time, and you talked about complicity as the ensemble, for the first time, and I'm a big fan of the theatre company, complicity, it just clicked. And I'm a grown up and I've done this for a long time, and I just went, but of course, that's exactly what it is. So what I think my point, if I am getting that with all my years of experience, how much more there is just to like drip feed and for the kids, for the students within a classroom setting, to just go, yeah, I get that now. That's relatable. I think it's brilliant. That's my, yes.
That's great, because what my plan is to actually put a whole lot of these ideas down. I've actually got, you know, a booklet here. Is this around the right way? Yeah, it's not mirrored or anything, but this is just one of the exercises that I tried to write it down and give it to people, because I don't travel around the countryside anymore. So I just send the book. Now, I'm not trying to sell the book. What I'm trying to do here is say, these are a lot of the exercises that teachers can use to get that kind of complicity out of your actors. So you'll notice I called it How to Create a Healthy Ensemble in the Classroom. So that title, I guess, is important, because what we're talking about is treating your class as though they're already a small theater company. Even the younger years, you know, you can still endow them with this responsibility, and their imaginations will go, well, oh yeah, we're going to do shows, we're going to make things. And so all of the classes are training towards making performance, and they will start to stick together and value each other. And that, I think that's the push that I'm trying to offer. Okay, I'll play the second part, because this is where I talk more about how to go about the process. So I'll share the screen again. Thank you. Going to make this proposal. I'm asking you as teachers, will this work? Only you know your own environment, your situation. I've been a bit spoilt, because I get invited to come in as a guest presenter, and I might do a workshop for 2 hours. And you know, I've run my exercises many times, and so therefore they're slick, they're fast, they work, and then I go. And all the kids think, hey, that guy knows what he's talking about. But I really take my hats off to teachers in high school that have to teach all year the same students. I really take my hat off. I don't know whether I could do that. So I'm asking you the question. Will this work? So what I'm talking about here is, let me run this very simple beginning, and then I'm hopefully going to create an online course that teachers could adopt. So my very first idea is the ritual of behavior when entering the drama room. So I believe we should make this space sacred in a way that you say to the students whenever they enter that, you know, that the bags go over there or whatever, you know, they try and make sure that the room is prepared. Someone sweeps it. You know, I guess that you do have cleaners in schools. Maybe you open up windows, let some air in or something. There's a ritual. Maybe the rostrum has been left in a particular mess from the last class that was in there, and say, so as soon as the students come in, they have this sort of idea of the responsibility of what they should do to prepare for work. Also, once the class has started, some teachers were saying to me, well, the kids are not allowed unless the teacher's in the room. So I would imagine that if they're lined up outside, that then the teacher walks in, you know, coffee cup in hand, papers under their arm, and all the kids pile in. That the very first thing they do is they form a circle and start stretching exercises. Now, in the beginning, I've got this idea that the way you get them to think about this as something as positive that they should all be doing is that you break it down and say, okay, you have to do this, you have to do a circle, everybody in, or stretching, and you can get them to do maybe, you know, salute to the sun, the yoga exercise. It's very simple. It gets them to reach the sky, touch the ground, stretch their bodies a little bit, and then you ask somebody in the group if they know another exercise, another stretching, and some of them will offer, and then another person and another person, and slowly you will start to find the students in your class who are physically aware, that they have actually done this. Maybe dancers are the ones to first put their hands up because they've been doing dance since they were this high, and they know what stretching exercises to do. After a while, when people are trying, I find that the group will self-elect the person who is, they think, is the best person to run the stretching. That's important. The teacher must not choose the person. Otherwise they go, oh, we've got to do what she says because the teacher said. That doesn't work to create a healthy ensemble. A healthy ensemble is where the students start to make decisions for their own health. So there's a process of elimination, of course. People try. But the group will end up deciding who they think is the best person to run the stretching section of their drama class. Now, I'm talking about the very first week. I'm talking about the very first term where the students come in and you're setting up this ritual of behavior. The other added thing to this is that if a student comes in late and the group's already started their stretching and warm up and stuff, they don't say sorry to the teacher. You know, oh, sorry, miss, I had Mr. So-and-so tell me, pull me aside and did something, blah, blah, blah. Then they just go and join the activity, whatever's going on. This is not acceptable. You should always get the students to say sorry to the class. And of course, this gets a few laughs the first time you do it. You know, you go, yeah, you're always late, blah, blah, blah. There's a bit of banter goes on. But after a while, you can actually see that the group starts to realize that if this person keeps on coming late, that there's something that the group needs to make a decision saying, well, look, you mustn't let us down. Imagine if we were getting ready for a performance and you come in late. We don't know whether we're going to have to replace you, someone else is going to have to do your lines, blah, blah, blah. You start to realize that the group has a responsibility towards each other. Okay, now that's my very first step. I've got other training ideas that I would love to run past you to see whether you like this idea of mine. And I guess I'd really like to hear your feedback. Okay, so that was the second half. So any thoughts there? Can you help me? Do you think this would work?
I think you've got two completely different demographics that you're going to have to think about. You've got the theatre groups that will absolutely buy into what you're saying, and as a theatre practitioner, I am absolutely with you with everything that you're saying. But then in my other hat, as a secondary school teacher, I'm not sure how you make. I mean, the ritual, that all the rituals are coming into the classroom, they're doing all the things, absolutely. I mean, that is really, really important. But I think, I mean, as a secondary school teacher, with kids, and you have to be completely inclusive, I would have to differentiate that for. Some would do the stretching, some would do this. I think how you make it as completely accessible for everybody, even with those whom you are going to have to differentiate for. I'd love for you to tell me how and thoughts of how to do that, because the idea is so fabulous. But how do I do that with a group that are not going to be able to, all of them be able to do that? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I guess that's what I want to hear, because I don't want to, go on and rant and rave if it's not really going to land as being useful in the classroom on your everyday activity.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because I think it can. But what I think the development point of it is how we make it accessible, how you would make it accessible for everybody. Because the idea, absolutely, ensemble is, it's the only key, for them to take group responsibility and for them to move forward. But it's the accessibility within a mainstream school environment, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. And I have, I've experienced it. So I guess some of it also depends on what the culture of, like, the demographic, as you said, where some areas will look at something like doing drama as fantastic, and others that, I call the Billy Elliot complex, that it's like, no, it's not, you just don't do it. And I found I've started now. I was a stage 6 specialist, which meant I worked with year 11s and 12s, and even with year 11s and 12s who selected the subject still were resistant. But I know if I'd had some more of these kinds of strategies, I probably would have implemented it earlier as well. See, I only got the kids in year 11. It was somebody completely different who had them in year 9 and 10. But if it was something that was in a whole school culture and it was part of the program and started from year 7, then I think that's the key to it. I think if I tried to do this with a group of year 12s now, even starting like year 12s, we'd get there, but not as best as we could.
I am not a primary school or secondary school teacher. I am an actor who would be teaching other adult actors this art form. Do you think the premise is still the same? And those rules? I mean, it's a completely different demographic to perhaps what most of you are teaching, but I would be teaching other actors. Do you think the premise is the same, Tony?
Absolutely. I use this non-verbal communication. You know, I showed you the book before. This one I use everywhere. I use it for orientation. If it's a drama camp, I use it for the beginning of a play. If I'm gonna be a director, I will always run this game because it sets the playing field. It sets the mode of communication, and I've noticed that every time I play it, I find something else in it that's of more value. And so I wrote it down thinking this has got to be of value for other people as well. And the reason why it's valuable is that it's non-verbal. Okay, so let's just talk about that for a minute. When you take away the intellect, you take away the head, you take away the thinking, then actors are starting to interrelate to each other just in the physical world. And when you've got no words, you can't say no to somebody, you know what I mean? Oh, you can shake your head, but you know, whilst I give them an improvisational task to create something, they're just working with the physical, you know, like you stand there, they physically say, and then I walk in and they just act it out. And the person who is maybe a little bit reluctant just finds himself in the middle of doing things, and they didn't have a chance to say, no, I'm not going to stand there and be a tree. You know, they just are, because it was part of the structure of the improvisations. So I say, if you take away the words, you take away that the fear of, oh no, I don't want to do that. Well, what about we all get up and we dance around? No, I don't want to do that either. Or what about, and then so that person said no, no, no 3 times to 3 ideas. You take away words, people are just getting up and doing. So yes, I use it as an orientation. Now, the rest of the concept I was talking about creating rituals, yes, I've got a list of things which I hopefully going to be using in the next Zoom, and the next one is that I'd like to, you know, deliver some of the techniques that you can do. And of course, there are improvisational games that I've used over many years, but they're all to do with creating spontaneity and you know, immediate reactions to things, rather than an actor just coming up and saying, well, what are my lines and where's my costume? You know, I work in a completely different world where we're looking at exploiting the actor's inner talents, and you only find them by doing these improvisational games.
I was just thinking also, like Holly, with the issues that you raised, that maybe one session is you film the class when they're supposedly doing an activity, so you actually identify all those students that Tony just spoke about, and so then you could allocate them those kinds of roles and create something with them. You could even show them the video and they could watch themselves without them realizing how they behave. You know, you give them a group activity, but you film them how the process of it, and then you could, you know, show them, well, look, you're naturally doing that, or you're doing that, and then integrate some of the strategies that Tony's suggesting as well.
Yeah, and I think at that point, you know, you are introduced for that kind of situation, and that's specifically teaching it, you know, to students. You're giving them more information anyway about this is this character, this is this character. Look, you can identify in everyday life, because you're already doing that. And I don't think that's the same idea that Mickey's got with doing it with grown-up people.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
But I think they're both. I mean, I love, Tony, the idea of what you're doing, and it's really inspirational, because even just the small chat that we're having, the amount of stuff that I've written down, gone, oh yeah, and I've forgotten that. Oh yeah, and I've forgotten that. And you think, the things that you know, but you forget. Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yes, I was going to ask if there's any interest in the follow up. So what I've got next is to actually explain how to do the nonverbal work to get the benefits out of what I was talking about. But there's also other games that I'd like to share. I might as well talk about the next one, because we're nearly going into 40 minutes. I promised that this meeting would only be 30 minutes. So if you have to go at any time, please feel free. There is a process that I've been using, which I found is every drama exercise, every drama game that you play, even if it's just a silly warm-up game, is it going to have a positive experience for every student in your class? That was my bottom line. Every time I planned my class, because I had an after-school sort of teenage after-school drama class once a week, and I found that we were working with the primary school age drama class, and the drama teacher that I was working with said, let's play word at a time, tell a story a word at a time. Do you know that game? Where people stand in the corner and they go, once upon a time, and it goes around the circle, and they improvise the story one word at a time. So what happened was that we were playing this as a warm-up game, as a start, and it got to one particular student, and they just kind of like froze. They were like, I don't know what to do. They just blocked, right? And of course, all the other students were watching them, and they laughed, and we went, aha, you can't do it, all this kind of stuff. So that student died a little bit for that moment. And I thought to myself, this is not what this drama class was for. I don't want to put anyone in that position where they feel like they're inadequate and they couldn't participate. So what we did was worked out how to make that game successful. And it was a very simple solution. What we did was we just got everyone in pairs and said, okay, we're going to do story at a time, but just with one other person. And it's a lot of fun. They got once upon a time there was and they could do it really easily. And if one of them blocked and can't think of anything, it was just between the two of them, and they probably just laugh it off and start again. Once upon a time. So it's very easy. And then you do it in pairs, then you do it in fours, then you do it in two groups of the whole room. And then you say, now we're going to do a really big challenge. We're going to see if we can do story at a time with the whole circle. And so what you've done is you've brought everyone up. You've actually introduced them to the game before they get to play it in front of everybody. And then that solves the problem of someone not being able to do, fulfill their turn as such. Now, if you apply that to every drama game, every warm-up game, every activity that you do with your students, if you just before you go into the room, you say, is every student going to have a positive experience out of this game? Then think about how you're going to make it work for them. And that's really the premise of what I'm trying to do in building a healthy ensemble, because everyone is going to be, having a positive experience. So I hope that is useful. If you can take that away. Any thoughts? Or should we leave it there? Does that sound like a good closing note?
I'll just say, I've used that game a lot. I come from an improv background as well. And so one of the things, I also do that in threes, where I have two people telling the story back and forth, and one will tag in so that they're listening, and then they can tag into the twosome and take over and replace somebody. and then that person waits and tags back into the twosome. So there's always two people doing the back and forth, but one person is listening to the story. So they're actively listening.
Yeah, that
Great
sounds that sounds very clever, because it gets to grow, because you got someone just standing out listening. It can actually go somewhere rather than just be random.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're, talking about with more experience. I was talking about primary age drama class there, where it's, why are they doing drama? Because it's fun. Why did their parents send them to drama? And sometimes parents will send their kids to drama, extracurricular, that is. They'll send them because maybe their child is a bit shy, and they say, well, maybe we need to get them to, be more expressive, and we'll send them to that drama class. But more often than not, it's probably a very difficult thing for that shy student to experience. So that's why I sort of play it that way. Or sorry, yes, we always have this overriding thought when planning a lesson, is every child going to have a positive experience? But at the same time, I came up with this because I saw teachers planning their lesson that didn't include this, right? So I was trying to say, hey, let's just stop and think about, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And that was the message I was trying to get across to other teachers. Well, shall I wrap it up? Shall I say thank you very much for attending? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Herbie. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you, Holly. And Henrietta, thank you for writing in the comments and helping me do the Zoom here tonight.